one of the ways that I like to try to do thinking about a philosopher is dedicating my thought to trying to answer a question that is raised or an observation that is made by a great philosopher. Maybe something that you're attracted to that they said, or something that is puzzling or riddling to you that they said. One of my favorites, Martin Heidegger, has said many things that are puzzling to me. One thing that he said is a great thinker thinks only one thought. There's only one thought that a great thinker dedicates his thought to. Another comment that Heidegger made that I think is one of the most intriguing that any philosopher ever raised was suggesting that philosophy could be done only in German or Greek. And so for many years I reflected on why would he say that, or why did he think that that was the case. Just as somebody else might say, well, great thinkers have all kinds of great thoughts. The investigations of Wittgenstein were among his great thoughts. There wasn't just one thought there. There was many, many thoughts. There wasn't just one thought in the Tractatus written by Wittgenstein. There were many thoughts. But then if you got Wittgenstein down to cases like sometimes at night he'd go to Bertrand Russell's and he'd be nervous and he was not okay. He did not feel okay with himself. And he would pace in Russell's dwelling for hours, looking outside and raising issues with Russell, and he may have revealed to Russell. I think all throughout my philosophy, I've been struggling to say just one thing, and I've expressed it in maybe hundreds of ways, but it was really only one thing. If there is only one thing in the universe, if the monists are right, there's only one thing in the whole cosmos, then we really only can think one thing, so that is a truth. But to prove that, you'd have to be a metaphysician of a very high order. But I've written a short essay that I want to dedicate to this question of what it was that Heidegger and Spengler kind of thought about why it was that the Germans and the Greeks were those cultures, civilization cultures, that could think philosophy, or that had, in a way, even if we go further, that invented philosophy, or that brought philosophy into being. Titled Heidegger's Claim about German and Greek. Martin Heidegger, a 20th century German philosopher, famously stated, "One cannot think about philosophy except in German and in Greek." I have pondered the meaning of this for 20 years. I believe, first of all, that both the Germans and the Greeks appear to be cultures that have advanced development of the technical arts and crafts. German engineering today is undeniably among the most precise of any culture. Take a look under the hood of a BMW or a Mercedes-Benz, and you will see. There is a deep sense in which this culture is dedicated not just to speaking about nature, but of mastering it. This is what Spengler means by the West being Faustian. It is one of the cultures that reaches into the infinite in order precisely to grasp the finite. If one would have spoken to someone in Germany developing aircraft in 1937, he would likely have said, "I like looking into the space and time of the universe at night. I do not merely manufacture or engineer aircraft, but I am possessed of a desire to imagine it soaring through the infinity of space, as an instance of Newton's first law, the law of inertia, which states that a body, an aircraft for instance, that begins motion will, if undeflected, move in a straight line forever." The engineer would have further, upon glancing at the universe at night, have longed to know if he was seeing a cosmos which goes on forever. He or she would have wanted to know if there were a way to prove that. It seems that this is more philosophical than the generally very practical approach of the English. Something of its deeper significance to things is what allows marion Heinz of Germany to persist in interpreting a text, Sein und Zeit, for her whole career and still not feeling that she has fully grasped it. When she interprets it, she reaches with her discerning eye into the infinite depth of Heidegger's text without feeling as if she is done with it. I think this is what Oswald Spengler means by the Faustian solar mind. In conversation, the aircraft designer might have said, "This is what I find in the soul of my people, and it is what I live." So I am not speculating in an empty sense, and this is a unique way of looking at the world, a Leben philosophy, a life or living life-world philosophy. This does not deny that other cultures have a sense of this. It denies that it is the soul or mind set of those cultures, or the essence of their being. A Frenchman would say, "I like to look at the infinite curvature of a woman's thighs or her labia and poetize this sensual aspect of being." So the German mind is at a further remove from pure sensing of the world. This makes them a people who have advanced further than other cultures, because this setting aside or bracketing, epoche, usuro, is a necessary condition for attempting to grasp the essence of things. No negative point is intended by this remark, but I am trying to get to the essence of Heidegger's meaning, that the Greeks and Germans long for the infinite, and that this somehow also explains a slight feeling, not present in European Italians or the English, of abstractness and longing that becomes for them the source of futural thinking, which is typical of the Germans. They and the Greeks seem to me always to look upon the world and contrast the actual and the possible. If Plato had not done this, he could not have written Republic, which is about a non-actual but possible form of the state, or better, it is a work that seeks to show the reader all possible forms of the state. It could be that Martin Heidegger believed that the modern Germans were a people that had survived and were today in Europe, that they had come from the ancient Greek culture, and that they had survived into the modern period, and so that the Greek and the Roman culture was really being replayed today as the history of Germany. That there was a continuity of the ancient Greeks and the modern Germans. This is possible, and it would explain how Heidegger's concern with philology, the analysis of language, culminated in him seeing that the two languages were cognate. It is not enough to say that the Greeks and Germans are scientific. So are the English. O. Spengler goes a long way to show that the mathematics of the infinite, though founded by Newton when he created the calculus, was a series of brilliant intellectual explorations of a world that, as Spengler would say, is only accessible to the inner eye of the mind, or soul. This inner depth, it seems to me, is the true home of the Germans and the old Greeks. Mysterious even in the brightest sunshine, nature will not have its veil displaced, and what she does not choose to have revealed to the eye cannot be wrested from her with mechanized gears or computerized levers. This is a quote from Faust. Note that for Newton, while possibly not for Leibniz, the secrets of nature could be revealed, for he pursued alchemy, which is just such an art. But the German mind, as Goethe's words attest, seeks to both penetrate vigorously and preserve zealously the very mystery of all things. This surely points to a difference of cultural significance. The English have a more practical, less poetical sense of the universe and themselves. I would not be surprised to find that the English are not as shy about nudity or invasions of privacy as the Germans. So this is an example I give of just trying to dedicate, 3 pages to answering what did a guy mean by something that he said. I'd rather have an answer to it on the table than no answer to it. So for years it has just involved me seeking to see what the differences are in those cultures. You know, for all intents and purposes, it seems in the modern world that we less identify ourselves with our nation than we identify ourselves as individuals. You know, that there's not as much nationalistic feeling anymore, or national identity. But that was certainly, according to Leo Strauss, that was national ways of looking at things were too going to be a quality or a qualitative difference in the way our world is going to appear in the future, because, as he said, the Germans have more of a chance of surviving in the modern world than Great Britain or France, because they're the younger, the more vigorous of the nations, and they brought a very comprehensive form to the world in that kind of philosophy that came forward after World War II, in the consolidation of the international order under something like the UN and under all the institutions that we see today. Those are really a form that was given birth to in reaction to that those radical years of Hitler's power in Germany. Those things wouldn't have even been imaginable without the kind of thing that happened there. And so dedication to this question that Strauss raises in Note on the Plan of Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil, about how the Germans are likely to have a further arrow into the future than other nations, is worth reflecting on. Why does he believe that France is not going to have as much of a future? Why does he believe that Great Britain is not going to have as much of a future? Does he believe that Germany in the future, although not nationalistic today, is going to come into confrontation with those nations? Is it just going to cover over them by kind of outliving the traditions of the very sensualist French and the very practical-minded, I won't say war-loving, because the Great Britain was not a nation, it seems to me, dedicated to a war-loving nation. But it was it was a nation that liked spreading its customs and all of its culture to the whole globe, which is evident today. The globe has that form of Great Britain still. Even though the era of colonization is over, Great Britain still has a hold on much of the world today. But Leo Strauss apparently thought that nationalism and nationalistic form-giving is going to be the privilege of the Germans in the future, and therefore we must question, what does he mean by that? How does that affect the United States of America? How does that affect Asia? How does that affect the other peoples of the world? And in this short essay, I try to give some reflection that might help people begin to pose that question.